No. Oh, I say! Messi. Oh, brilliant skill from Lionel Messi. Surging forward with real menace here. Brilliant from Messi. Oh, what a goal that is!
Yes, good evening. Welcome to Football Heritage TV. I'm here with the one and only Sean Butler from Spurs Talk Show. How are you? You well?
Good, mate. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Just getting through December. Looking forward to the next Tottenham game. Yeah, I'm in fairly good spirits. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Relaxed, and yeah, looking forward to it. I said to you backstream, I've kind of forgotten how to do everything on StreamYard in 3 weeks, which is really
got a
pathetic.
Nice tan, though. Most
But
important thing.
I have got a nice tan. Yeah. I actually had my beard cut today, and you can see the whiteness from where the beard covered while I was tanning. Nice. But listen, big up to you. Thanks for joining me, Sean. I know it was quite short notice, but thank you for joining me. And listen, welcome to absolutely everyone in the chat. Hope everybody is well. We are 7 days out from Christmas, but the football is showing no signs of slowing up. Sean, today I just wanted to talk about Tottenham's season so far. It feels like, I mean, it's been 17 games. I don't know about you. It feels like this has been going on for a long time. A lot has happened, lots of ups, some downs as well, lots of change in the summer. I just wanted to talk generally about Tottenham's season. So if I had said to you, the day Harry Kane left, let's go back to the day Harry Kane left. It was like the fan base went mad. A lot of people didn't believe he was going. People talking about relegation and relegation battles. If I had said to you, look, we're going to be going into, give or take, Christmas with one game in 5th, 1 point behind Man City, you would have bitten my hand off for that, right? You would have said that's a good first half of the season.
Yeah, I would have done. But if you'd also said to me, would you take being 3 points behind Aston Villa at this stage of the season, I probably would have said, you can shove it somewhere where the sun doesn't shine on your face quite as nicely as it does.
I've just got flashbacks to a stream you and I had a massive argument about Aston Villa.
No, listen, I couldn't have been more wrong about Aston Villa. They are an unbelievable outfit right now. They're playing fantastic football. Unai Emery, I know Henry, loves that, worships the ground that guy walks on. But he's got them playing fantastic football, and they're another. I don't know if they're going to maintain it, whatever. But I think this season's just a crazy one for me. I'm not sure if any team is particularly special, and I think that there's a few teams that are like the usual front runners are finding ways. Some of them are letting themselves down. Some of them are getting themselves through tricky parts. I don't know, other teams that are chomping at the bit to kind of join the top four, like an Aston Villa are doing it. Brighton have fell away so far this season. Newcastle are riddled with injuries. Tottenham started fantastically, but then got injuries and suspensions. It's just one of these crazy first halves of the season, and it sets us up really nicely for a second half, which could go any direction. So it's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's strange the way people look at it. It's like, I've had loads of people messaging me, even though I've not been active for like however long. Loads of people messaging me going, "Oh, we're 1 point behind your beloved Man City," and then your take on it is, but we're points behind Aston Villa. So it's an interesting way to look at it. But in general,
I would have taken where we're at, because I was expecting us to be, 8th, sort of 7th, 8th, 9th, somewhere around there, mixing it with the Brightons and the Villas, but on a lower echelon. So I'm delighted with what Tottenham have done this season. I'm delighted with the way we're playing, which to me was the most important thing, always has been the most important thing. But I mean, I am delighted with 1 point behind Man City. I'm just a little bit upset that Aston Villa have become such an unbelievable team so quickly under Unai Emery.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching. I was going to say I was watching a show. I was watching my show. I wasn't on it. I was watching the Spurs review last night, and the lads were talking about whether or not it was a title race. And obviously my feelings on title races are that they don't really formalize themselves until the end of January. I think when you get into the last sort of 15 games, you've had the window. That's when I start looking at the table for a title race. But lots of them were saying, well, actually, Villa is our benchmark now. We've got to keep up with Villa. We've got to make sure that they're the team in and around where we should probably be. Do you see it like that at this stage of the season? Or do you see that why not keeping up with Man City, with Liverpool, with Arsenal? What's your feeling around that? Because we're in and around there.
Yeah, 6 points off top, mate, after 17 games. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think that I think that you only should really be having conversations around the title race once everybody's played everybody once. So at the halfway point, then you can start doing it. But I don't think you can win the title in the first half of the season. But I feel like I was using the analogy. It's like a Grand Prix race, right? Like a Monaco Grand Prix, where the qualification is almost the most important part. Like you don't win a race on the Friday and the Saturday. You can only win it on the Sunday, but you can certainly lose it if you put yourself out of contention in the qualifying process. And I feel like the first half of the season is the qualification process of the Grand Prix that is the Premier League season. For me, to be 6 points off of top is so far ahead of where I thought we were going to be. I've just realised we're 3 points behind Villa. We're 5 points behind Villa, which is another dagger in my heart. But look, I think that
does it hurt you that they're actually winning away games as well now? Like because
it does.
that was their kryptonite, wasn't it? That they weren't very good away from home, and now they've beaten us at home. They've just gone a tricky game with Brentford. At home as well. Away. They won another away game. I can't quite think what it was. In that time, they've beaten Man City. They've beaten Arsenal. Can they stay there, Sean?
There's no reason why they can't. If they don't get injuries to their key players, there's no reason why they can't. I mean, their form at home is just unbelievable. They played the toughest. They haven't played Liverpool at home yet, but they played their toughest. Sort of two of the big boys at home and beaten them. Look, I don't expect them to go throughout the season without some sort of catastrophic or some sort of kind of disruption. But I think anyone who's dismissing them as being a relevant nuisance and a team that's going to be certainly in the Champions League situation, certainly going to be taking interesting games off of whoever you do think is in the title race. But yeah, I don't think you can write anybody off. As I say, for me right now, this part of the season is just kind of getting yourself ready, jockeying for position for the title race, and they're 1 or 2 points off of the top. So it would be disrespectful, to them to say that they're not, they certainly, and that they don't deserve to be there. They certainly do. I just can't stand the fact that they're doing so well, because I have spent most of the first half of the season and most of the summer saying that they're nowhere near as good as Tottenham.
But look, at the same time, listen, I've always said, right, 3 games in football is a very long time. Yeah, in 3 games time, we could be sitting here and Aston Villa are top of the league. In 3 games time, they could be 10 points behind because they've not won a game. And that's the same with any team. I'm not just saying Villa. That's what I said about all teams. And look, it's interesting because, look, Man City are 1 point ahead of us. I think most people, I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, I think most people would probably acknowledge that Man City will come good because that's what they do. But Arsenal, only 6 points away from us. Liverpool, they're up there, but they haven't looked amazing. I'm going to ask you a question.
Liverpool look really... I think at the start of the season, everybody was kind of on this bandwagon of saying that they've got the best forwards in the best forward line in the Premier League, most amount of options. Yeah. Their attacking options in midfield are superb. But it's the trickiness in the 6 and it's their defence where they're vulnerable. But of late, if I'm entirely honest, I think their defence has been far better, but their attacking options, Szoboszlai looks like a tenth of the player in the last 7 games or 8 games that he did in the first half. Luis Diaz looks like he's lost his
mojo,
that zip that he can get past, that quickness of speed of his feet. Obviously, Mo Salah's kind of carrying them in the forward area, and Darwin Núñez looks like the kind of the B-Tech Richarlison that I think most of us sort of thought he was. So I don't know. Liverpool look rocky. I don't think Arsenal have been spectacular. I know everyone's like, "Oh, wait until they get into their second gear." I'm not sure if they've got that second gear. I think they just changed their style a little bit. And I think last season they broke through their ceiling. This time they're coming back down. But I think it's a pretty poor season in terms of superb quality.
That's what I was going to say to you, mate. We'll get to Spurs and the signings and how we're playing in a minute. But when you actually look at the Premier League right now, there's a number of ways you can look at it, right? Depending on the type of character that you are, you could look at it and go, oh my God, look how many teams up there that are strong. I feel like I don't feel that at the moment. I feel like Arsenal, they're top. We can't knock them.
Yeah.
I'm not impressed by them.
Yeah.
I'm not really impressed by Liverpool. Man City, listen, I've always said I think Man City will win the league. I've not changed my mind on that. But when have you ever known Man City to win 1 in 6? 4 draws, 1 defeat. So, and then you look at us, we went 5 games without a win, still only 6 points off the top. Aston Villa up there. It feels like, does it feel like a year where an anomaly could happen? Does it feel like a Leicester season for someone? Or are we going to see the big boys pull away probably the other side of the year? What do you reckon?
I don't know, mate. Honestly, I don't know. I'd be really surprised if Aston Villa were to do a Leicester. I don't think Tottenham are going to be able to do it. I think it all depends on injuries. Like Manchester City, let's not forget, as much as they've got 2 close to world-class players in nearly every position, losing De Bruyne, and then more lately, Haaland hasn't, even though he's still been banging in the goals, he hasn't really looked like himself. Mm-hmm. They've been, uncharacteristic.
And now he's injured.
And now he's injured, exactly. Yeah, right. I'm not sure the extent of that. And they look uncharacteristically sloppy at the back at times. It looks like they're a little bit fatigued, not like physically fatigued, but just fatigued from the pressure of going, doing what they did last year, going for a fourth go. If I was a betting man, and I am, I would probably say that it's going to be one of Liverpool or Arsenal that eventually, if anyone's going to take it from City, it'll be one of those two. I don't see it being Tottenham, Villa, Newcastle, any of those. I'm going to take the easy path here, but I still expect it to be a very tight run in. And I think Manchester City will sort of figure it out and pull it together, because Pep Guardiola is just a perfectionist. He won't allow this continuation of kind of poor form to carry on for too long.
Yeah, it's interesting. Look, just before we move on to Spurs, listen, there are over 225 of you in here at the moment, so please smash that like button. Good to see you all. Thank you for all the nice messages. I really do appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, then please do. No bones about it after what I did the other week. Lost a couple of subscribers. So if anyone wants to subscribe, that would be really appreciated. The link is pinned. And also, go and subscribe to Sean. I think he's nearly at 100K now or something. So go and subscribe to Sean as well. And
sorry about that, mate. Just quickly though, for anyone that has subscribed to my channel, if you have, can you at some point just double check you still are? Because I'm going through a really, really weird thing with YouTube where they keep unsubscribing people, and I keep getting messages every day that people keep unsubscribing and then resubscribing, and then they're getting unsubscribed again. So it's a weird things are happening. So yeah, if you get a chance, just double check you're still subscribed. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely do that. So please, as we said, please do subscribe if you haven't, and let me know if you do, because I can say thank you that way. Sean, just quickly before we move on to Spurs, I was actually filming a 10 in 10 today. Obviously, you were the first person who did a 10 in 10 with me. I was filming a 10 in 10 today. Yeah, well, I enjoy doing them. I was doing it with LB, Man City. So it's LB. And I won't give away his answers, but at the beginning of the show, I said to him, look, how are you feeling about the football? And he said, look, I'm not used to this. 6 games, we've only won 1. And I said, are you worried? Like, are you worried that you won't win the league? And he said, no. He went, because we've been here before. He said, and the fact that we've won 1 in 6 and are still only 5 points behind these teams tells me everything I need to know. And at this stage last year, they were further behind Arsenal. So that's a Man City fan base kind of thinking.
Yeah, confidence in sort of staying the path, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And
how far were they behind Arsenal? Well, that was it. They got 8 points behind Arsenal at some point last season, but at what point in the season was it when they were 8 points behind? Was it around now?
No, I'm pretty sure it was near. Because when did we beat them? We beat them in the January. Is that right?
Yeah.
We beat them sort of late end of January, if I remember rightly. I can't remember if it was 6 or 8 or something. But I remember that they had a couple of games in hand. They had Arsenal still to play twice, and they then obviously subsequently won both those games.
We beat them 1-0 in February the 5th last year.
February the 5th, was it? Okay, because we were the team that after that they've
that's right. And we lost to them.
They then went on that
4-2 in January.
That's right. We then went on that. We then went on a poor run from that point, and they went on the unbeaten in 28 and won everything. But look, I want to move it to Spurs. I want to start first of all. I want to talk about the style of play that's been implemented by Spurs, and you started the show off by saying that was a key thing for you, and we talked about this a lot in the summer. We talked about this a lot last year. That what was more important than league finish, than Champions League, and that was implementing a style. How happy have you been with that? You know, did you expect it to be what it is so early?
Yeah. So second part first is no, I didn't expect it to happen so soon. I expected it to be a season where we were going to have a struggle. If we were going to have a struggle, it was going to be at the start, putting aside injuries and things, just in terms of learning the system, understanding the process. I thought it was going to be, I thought teams like Brentford would probably be going, it's great to get Tottenham out of the way early because they'll be at their weakest. But I think Tottenham would just I thought we were, with the best team on the opening day. And I think we've been the best team for the vast majority of the games we played, in terms of possession, in terms of chances. Sometimes we haven't taken them and stuff, but and sometimes we've been tactically outclassed a little bit by teams like I think David Moyes did a job on us. And I think obviously Unai Emery did as well. So in terms of how quickly did it happen? I'm massively surprised. Obviously, very grateful that that's the way it's happened. In terms of the football itself, at times, mate, it's been scintillating. The Newcastle game was just unbelievable. From the football we played, the way that with the boys went about it on the back of the kind of losses we'd incurred. They went and everything clicked. The football was great. The possession was great. The chance creation was great. And the conversion was there. In most of the games recently, there's been something that hasn't been quite right, or we've got away with something. Like against Manchester City, we didn't create too much, but what we did create, we took, whereas City could have been 4 goals away from us if they'd taken their chances. You have to ride your luck. But against West Ham, we had a lot of possession, didn't create very much. Against Aston Villa, we created loads, but couldn't convert anything. Against Wolves, nothing really worked. So there was always little things that weren't really going our way. But I think that the best performances, apart from Newcastle and Villa, the first half against Villa was great. Apart from those 2 games, I would say that the best performances that I've seen in terms of football were probably in the first 6 or 7 games up until Arsenal. After that, it started to kind of get a little bit, I'm not saying disappointing, just it wasn't quite as impressive after the Arsenal game until recently. Obviously, that's largely down to just the disruption to what we've had to go through with suspensions and injuries and things. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the same. I think there's been some games where we've looked absolutely breathtaking. Like you mentioned there, the Newcastle game, definitely the first 45 minutes against Aston Villa was as good a half of football as you'll see. Apart from conceding, it was as good a half of football as you'll see. It was complete and utter domination. There's been other games where we weren't quite at it, but we got over the line, which is the key thing. Crystal Palace springs to mind. I didn't think we were really at the races. I felt against Luton, brilliant start. And then after that, I felt that obviously it didn't help with Bissouma getting the red card. Sheffield United looked like we couldn't find a way through. But on the main, the football's been very, very good. It's a nice, clear identity of what we want to be. Listen, while I've been off, I've been watching shows. I haven't commented on a single thing for weeks and weeks, but I've been watching, and you get some people that think it's sustainable. Some people saying it's not. Other people saying that at times it's a little bit naive. But let's be fair. If I took you back to this time last year, performance-wise, it's night and day, isn't it? It's absolutely night and day from what we were watching. That's what we asked for, right?
The naivety thing, look, when we went down to Chelsea, I think that's when the question marks were raised. But if you actually, I still to this day can't find, if anyone's watching who knows an example of this, it doesn't have to be a Tottenham game, but any game, when the last time a team went down 2 men, so down to 9 men against 11, with substantial time on the clock, and didn't end up losing the game. I don't know of an example. And so with that being said, you're like the inevitable was going to happen anyway. And so I feel like it was about something else other than just trying to go for the win. It was almost around trying to instill something. There was a bigger picture, like a kind of zoom out, there was more of a message and a meaning rather than a tactic to try and achieve something in the game. And we lost anyway, and people would have received it differently had we got punished, 8 or 9-1 in the end. But yeah, I don't think there was that much tactical naivety after that. I feel like the one time when he changed his tactic and told the team or set the team up in a bit more of a defensive way was against Wolves, and it was the worst performance of the season. I spent 5 hours on the car going up to that game. I was so annoyed to come all the way back having watched what we watched, and I don't want to see that again. So it was after that performance, and I think he himself even came out and sort of initially said it was the players or whatever. Then he kind of came out and said, no, actually, I'm frustrated that we did that. I feel like for me, I'm so on board with the process of this particular style that I don't want to go back. Having just a taster of Conte ball, which is what that Wolves away game was.
I agree.
I don't want anything to do with that. So I will take the bitter with the better. I'll take the rough with the smooth. I'll take the occasional wallops against teams if we're going to play this system, as long as we stick to what we're trying to do here. Because for me, as I've always said, I prioritize watching good football, or not above trophies, but for me, it has to be the cornerstone of what I want to. I watch Tottenham. I'm not a player.
You've got to enjoy it. You've got to enjoy it, right? It's why you're a football fan. Yeah. And that's coming from someone that, listen, I desperately want to win a trophy. I'm sure we all do. But first and foremost, you've got to enjoy the style of play. And Ange has brought that back to Spurs. Look, let's move to we'll get to some signings in a minute. But before we do, let's have a look at our current situation where we've got a couple of injuries. A few players have come back now. Romero's back from suspension. Richarlison's back now. We'll talk about him in a minute. It looks like Solomon's back in training from the Spurs official Instagram and Twitter sites or whatever. But we are starting to rack up a few disciplinary issues, I suppose you could say. That's now Romero with a red. Bissouma's got 2 reds. I think Udogi's got a red. Udogi and Bissouma are both missing for the trip to Everton. Bentancur's injured. Are we? I don't want to use the crisis. I don't think crisis is the right word. Are we in a situation now, Sean, where we have to, come rain or shine, go and get 2 to 3 bodies in during the January window because of the style of play that we've got and the injuries that we're going to pick up because of that and the suspensions? Is this now inevitable that we have to go and do that? Or do you think we can get through to the end of the season?
No, I think we definitely need at least 2. Ideally 3. I mean, in an ideal world, if there was money available and it was simple, which it never is, I think you could make the argument we're 4 players away really from a squad that can compete. I don't want us to. What I don't want us to do is to go and commit to 4 and 5 year contracts on players that we need for January and February because of the African Cup of Nations or because we've got an injury. I don't want us to rush and be rash and overpay for players that we're then stuck with for 4 or 5 years that we can't shift on 6 months down the line. If that's the scenario, if that's what we're doing, I'd rather not do it. I'd rather stick with what we've got. And if we can't get good players that fit the need for now in January, then wait until the summer when the market's easier. I just don't want any more, Brian Hill kind of 4 years, no plan. He's not going to work in the UK. Doesn't, we can't find a bid for him in Spain. Lo Celso, Ndombele, Sanchez. I don't want those. I want players from now on. I want players that we've identified that are specific players that either are versatile for a reason or that are, that are experts in one role that we absolutely need covering. And in January, it's going to be difficult, mate. But, and I think this disciplinary thing, just quickly, is also, I think it's slightly born out of the tactics as well. I think that this tactic that we have, this philosophy of Ange Ball, it encourages calculated risk that, sometimes leaves the players, at the top end of the pitch. And when there's breakaways and transitions, you're left with players like Bissouma trying to cover a lot of ground, and if they make a mistake or have a heavy touch, then they have to do something. Otherwise, they're going to concede a chance. And I think that there's a bit of a problem here that's emerging. That I think it's a little bit of bad luck, a little bit of naivety on the players' part, but I also think it comes with the territory of the increased risk appetite that this system promotes. And so, on that basis, I think we do need to not necessarily write off midfielders in January if there's one available, because I think that this Bissouma thing will happen again and again and again.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because do you know what? I didn't realise just how bad our disciplinary was, and it was only was it Perchi who sent this to me? Probably Perchi. I haven't really been speaking to many people who sent me the disciplinary table, and just to see how far we were at the bottom. But can there be some positives taken from that? That there is fight. Now, listen, I'm not in any way, Sean, I'm not glorifying players getting sent off and constantly getting yellows, but doesn't that signify the fight, the urgency within this team? And I know there's a fine line on that, right? There's a fine line between the fight and stupidity, but doesn't it signify in a bit that that's what he's implemented?
Yeah, mate. I think, look, I think you're not the first person who said that. I was speaking to Dave about this on Sunday night, Irish Hotspur, and he was like, I absolutely love it. I want these players to, to go in and to not, to not sort of leave anything on the dance floor, if you like, to be aggressive, to let people know that we're about, as long as you do it in a controlled fashion. And to be entirely honest, like, I think that, we're missing you, doggy, and I don't think we should be. I think that was the most ridiculous yellow card that's ever been given. And I think that there's another point I think that Dave was making as well, which I'll sort of latch onto. I think that some of these yellow cards that we're getting are out of frustration, because we might be the dirtiest team on paper in the league table for cards, but we're by no means the dirtiest team on any given match day.
Yeah,
we're playing. We're usually getting lumps kicked out of us, and it's out of frustration that we're not getting protected by the referee. That we then go and kind of go, all right, then you want to do that? We'll go. We'll go toe to toe, which I think is obviously somewhat, like you say, like you're asking. I think it's somewhat impressive that at least there's the desire and the fight to have a go, rather than being half baked in it. But I think with it you have to be clever, right? You can't be silly. And I think sometimes we've sort of crossed that line into silliness a little bit with some of these tackles.
Yeah, because I'll be honest, it does worry me slightly when, not so much for Everton, if I'm honest. Listen, I'll be really disappointed if we don't beat Everton. I think they've done really well. They've done really, really well, and we'll come to them a bit later. But it just worries me slightly in games that I'm now looking and going, okay, right, so you've got no Bissouma, Bentancur's injured, Maddison's injured. Right, now you're looking at, is it Lo Celso, who clearly there's something there he doesn't fancy because he's the one that always is not playing? Is it Skip and Højbjerg, who have been the perennial last 20 minutes of games players? That is the worry, isn't it? That if we do want to keep, I'm not saying a tight race, but if you do want to keep near the coattails of the teams above you, you can't be going into too many games where you've got a midfield of Højbjerg, Skip and Sarr, because again, that is what we saw. Essentially, that's the kind of style we saw at Wolves. So that's a worry, right? That's a worry when we do collect these suspensions.
Yeah, no, it is. It is absolutely a worry. But you know what? Just latching on to Philly 2109's comment, I think he's aiming that at me, because we did a show earlier where I asked a question around
which time? What time? This
one you got.
Oh, the one. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Where we were talking about the midfield, we were talking about the squad, and I posed the question whether or not our squad is as thin and our depth is as lackluster as some people make out. And I would argue that I don't think it is in certain areas of the pitch. I think if you've got a midfield, if we're including Decky now as a potential midfielder, where you go through the list of players in our midfield squad, and you get to position 7 before you've mentioned Pierre-Emile Højbjerg's name. I don't think there's many teams in the Premier League that can have a player that is as talented, whether you like him or not, just relative to other teams. The 7th choice midfielder in your squad is Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. The 8th choice midfielder in your squad is Ollie Skip. I don't think we're lacking depth at all in the midfield. I think we've got a lot of options. I think that just now we've got players that are injured or suspended, right? So it's you having to go to those depths. But I still think you can put out a competent midfield. even if it is Højbjerg, Lo Celso, and Decky, that's still a midfield that will compete on its day with most first teams in the Premier League, and yet that's our 6th and 7th choice midfielders as our 6 and 8, which I think are, I think it goes some way to kind of sort of deflect this argument or to diminish this argument that we've got such little depth in our squad. I just don't think it's true. I think in defence we don't have any depth. I think at goalkeeper we haven't got any depth. I think at left back we don't. But I think as you move up the pitch, midfield and forward line, I think Tottenham do have options when everyone's fit. We have plenty of options.
Well, listen, before I talk about January and what we might need to buy, etc., I want to go through each area of the pitch and see what you've made of it so far this season, because it has been all changed. Whichever way we look at it, everything's changed at Tottenham how long's Ange been there now? 5 months, 6 months coming up to? Must be 6 months now. New director of football or technical director, whatever you want to call it. The new CFO. It used to be something to do with finance in all the companies I've worked with, but it's something to do with Scott Munn. You've got all the new scouts, the new manager, we've got new players. Everything has changed. I want to get your opinion. The goalkeeping situation. Let's start there. This was quite contentious back in the summer, wasn't it? Because I think most of the Spurs fan base, let's be honest, had Raya as the one. Everyone was so disappointed when David Raya wasn't going to sign and Daniel Levy was the devil. And how can you not pay 40 million for this guy? He's world class. He's brilliant. I notice people aren't saying that anymore. But then we go and get Vicario and it's, oh my God, it's the cheap option. What do you make of how Vicario settled in and has he surprised you?
Yeah, massively. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't someone who was, chastising Daniel Levy for not paying the 40. I was surprised with the whole thing how it turned out. I did have my concerns about Vicario, having watched his highlight, low light, everything reel or whatever on the Y Scout tool, and then seeing him in pre-season. I was like, oh, I don't know, this guy parries a lot. Not sure. And but then look, I think everyone who doubted him has been wrong, because for me, not only is he the best Tottenham transfer this summer, I think you can make the argument he's the best value for money transfer across the Premier League. And I think you could also make the argument that he's the best pound for pound transfer in the Premier League this season. I don't think anyone has come in who's been more necessary, done as well, and
let's ask. Let me just interject then. Everyone in the chat, that's a great point. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of many, if any. Give me players. Try and be subjective. I know we've got some Arsenal fans in here. I know that I can see we've got Newcastle in here and stuff. Wolves. Who's the best pound for pound signing to date for you guys? Let us know in the chat. Do you agree with Sean? Is it Vicario? Is there somebody else? Sorry, Sean, as you were, mate.
No, I'd say, I mean, pound for pound and also just value for money. Like, I don't think it. I think that he's the best transfer in Tottenham. People were saying it was James Maddison. I think we got a great bit of business with James Maddison as well. I know we're going to talk about him. But I just think that I don't think there's an argument. The guy's £15 million and he's done unbelievably well. Mm-hmm. So hats off to whoever it was in the scouting team, whether it was a Paratici pull, whether it was Scott Munn, whether it was, I don't think it was Rob McKenzie or Johan Lange yet, because I'm not sure they were there unless they were doing it. Maybe it was Gabbanini that identified it last season and we just work on it. I don't know who's responsible, but whoever it was, shout out to that guy. Played an absolute blinder. But I'll tell you what we do need, mate. You give with one hand, take with the other. I'm not entirely convinced of the merit of giving Fraser Foster a new contract, because if Vicario was to get injured, the thought of him playing Ange Ball terrifies me.
Well, I mean, look, let's talk about that then before we move on to the defence. Is this a homegrown thing? Is this because, Fraser Forster ticks that box, right? He's homegrown. Is this hang on, we need some more homegrown players. Do we need it to be in the goalkeeping area? No, let's just hope that Vicario doesn't get injured. Or is this just us being cheap and not going out there and scouting properly? What or any other reason? Why do you think they've done that?
I think it's a combination. I think, yes, he's homegrown. I think it's a case of, let's kick the can down the road. Injuries to goalkeepers are fairly few and far between, touch wood, although there's a couple knocking around now in the Premier League. So let's hope it doesn't come our way. But, I think he's very likable as well. Apparently he's a really nice personality around the dressing room. Everyone seems to like him. mature and responsible. I think it's one of those things that there's an intention to get to him. There's an intention to get to replace him at some point, but they're not ready yet. There's, they've got 3 or 4, more pressing issues. So, and also he probably deserved an extension based on the fact that when he did come in last season, he didn't embarrass himself and did okay. But I'd be very surprised if he was still our backup goalkeeper come the start of next season.
Yeah, it's. I think it is worrying. Listen, I think Fraser Forster's had a really good career. And by the way, I said really good career. I didn't say I think he's a really, really good goalkeeper. But you're right. There are certain styles of play where you can't have a guy as rigid.
Imagine him coming out against Chelsea.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, but I mean, I'm guessing just the last part on the goalkeepers. Expecting to see Hugo Lloris out the door in January, or do you think he's gonna? Because we haven't got any squad places left, right? So for players to join the squad, some people need to be deregistered, if that's the correct term. Are you expecting him to be on that list and moving out in January to get some game time somewhere?
I'd hope so. I think he was playing chicken with Daniel Levy, expecting that he would get paid his contract out. And Daniel Levy's probably gone on that basis. Absolutely not. You make sure he turns up for training every day, but you don't play him or whatever. And I think now there's 6 months left. I'm sure it will be one of these last minute things. He'll either be released with his contract paid off, or he will be allowed to go somewhere for free. I'm sure there'll be a team out there, maybe a Newcastle, who were after him in the summer, by the way. They've lost Nick Pope, haven't they, for 4 or 5 months. So maybe they might not fancy Dubravka for the rest of the season. Maybe they might turn to a Hugo Lloris just for a 6-month contract. So I'd be surprised.
Hugo going to St James's Park and winning the league title for Newcastle. Can you imagine it? Big Hugo. But yeah, listen, let's move on to the defence just quickly before we do. Guys and girls, there's a lot of you in here. Smash that like button. Lovely to see so many of you. Thank you for all the nice messages. Big up to you, Jacob, as well. And guys and girls, if we could get another 4 or 5 subscribers, that would be absolutely fantastic. But thank you very much for smashing the like button. Really appreciate your support. Please get over and subscribe to Sean and his colourful chair. Sean, defence. Now, actually, I won't say anything. I'll say my bit afterwards. What do you make of our defence? What do you make of the defensive options? So talk to me around defending.
We don't have many options. Obviously, Eric Dyer has been frozen out. In terms of centre backs, look, I think it was a disaster what happened between us between the Chelsea game with Romero and Van der Ven. Apparently, Van der Ven's back in a couple of weeks, which is unbelievably quick, which is fantastic news. I think after the Burnley game, he should be back, according to reports. And Romero, I think, has done brilliantly this season, but he still has that, that sort of bozo gene, unnecessarily sort of dives in and, could have been sent off against Newcastle as well when we were 3-0 up. So I think we definitely need some sort of support. What I do want to say, for what it's worth, I know there's a lot of people that kind of conflate Eric Dyer and Ben Davies and just kind of put them as a pair of players that are not good enough in the centre-back role. But Ben Davies in the last couple of games has been absolutely sensational. Yeah, and I think he deserves to get kind of mentions for his work ethic and his in spite of the fact that Ange Postecoglou has made it clear 2 or 3 times in press conferences that we're looking for another centre-back, which basically means you're a sort of a stopgap until either our first choice are back or we get someone in better. We definitely need someone better. 100% we need someone better. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about Todibo today in the links and that. I can't see him coming to Tottenham. He plays for Nice. Nice's chairman is the same chairman as going to be Man United. Man United are looking for a new centre-back. I'm pretty sure that just like when Leipzig bought Sesko from Salzburg, pretty sure Manchester United put in a £50 million bid to Salzburg for Sesko. They turned it down and then sold him for 25 million to Leipzig. So I don't think that I'd be amazed if Sir Jim Ratcliffe was going to accept the bid from Tottenham for a player who Manchester United are also after.
Yeah.
You know I don't see it happening.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because do you remember the kind of age-old Spurs needing a striker? And it was, well, who's going to come and sit on a bench because we had someone called Harold Edward Kane up front for a decade? I'm intrigued to know your opinion, Sean. I think everyone kind of knows, right, that when fit, and again, again, listen, it's all ifs, buts, and maybes. When fit, Van der Ven and Romero, that's the partnership. Mm-hmm. If you are a Todibo, let's just assume, I know what you just said there is absolutely bang on the money. Let's just assume you're Todibo, Spurs go in and go, there's 50 million, and he goes, and the club accept the offer. If you're a Todibo, are you looking at Spurs as an attractive proposition, not for the direction the club are going in, because I think that is attractive, but for him as an individual, are you looking at that and going, yeah, that's a bit of me, or hang on, when Van der Ven and Romero are fit, I won't play. It's a conundrum, right, for players. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, for look, yes, it is. There's very few clubs that have kind of earned the credibility to have, like, it's different. If you're a team that wins trophies, then you can be a trophy winner by being a bit part squad player. You can go to Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea back in the day. You can go and be a decent player that doesn't play every week, but you know you're probably going to win trophies, so you're okay with it. Or you can get paid a lot of money elsewhere to go and that be your focus. At Tottenham, you don't really have any draw. You're not going to win trophies all that often, if ever. And you've got young players like Van der Ven and Romero are both fairly young. But what I would say is, I think that both Romero and Van der Ven are going to have injuries. Romero isn't exactly not injury prone. He's missed, I don't know, 3-4 months of 2 seasons combined, right? He also gets suspended quite a lot because of his discipline issues. And I think Van der Ven is a player that relies on his pace, and he's only young, but has now had a significant, serious hamstring injury. That won't be the last time that happens. So I do think that there's a compelling sales pitch to a defender who is capable of playing both the left or the right. If they're ambipedal, who can adapt to play both sides, you could say to them, look, come in, compete for your spot. Both or one of these guys are going to get injured. 1 or 2 of them are going to get suspended. And by the way, also, just separately, I'm not even convinced Romero will be at Tottenham in 3 years' time. I think Romero will move somewhere else to a Spanish-speaking club in the next couple of years.
I listen. I said this in the summer, and people went nuts at me, Sean. A lot of these South Americans, that's their dream growing up, is Barcelona and Real Madrid. That's their dream, right? They want to go and play for the biggest clubs in the world. Now, it doesn't matter how good we think we are or the journey we're on. We are not Barcelona. We are not Real Madrid. I think there's such a shortage of centre-halves in world football now that the likes of Romero push themselves to the top of that list. Do you know what I mean? I think the likes of Romero, with the World Cup winning under his belt, I do see that a Madrid or a Barcelona will come in for him at some point.
At some point. I'm not saying right now. I think
agreed.
He might be settled here right now, but how many players spend more than 4 or 5 years at a club anyway, unless they've got some long-term connection to the club? I don't think Romero necessarily does. So I don't think that there's there's any rush for Romero. I think he's happy where he is, but I don't think it'll be that difficult to convince one up-and-coming, very talented centre-back to come in and compete. I think there's going to be enough mix, especially if you're playing in Europe as well. I think in European football next season, if we get there, then you're going to add 30-40% to the game schedule. You're going to need people to rotate.
And I suppose
Sorry?
No, sorry. Go on, mate. Go on.
Just last thing I'll say is what I don't necessarily want to see us do, though, is go and sign 2 good young centre-backs, because if we're trying to push this narrative, which I think we are at the moment, of trying to sign up, the UK or the world's best young talent, what's the point of signing Ash Phillips? What's the point of having a youth system in Alfie Dorrington? What's the point of this guy Vuskovic, from Croatia? You're always going to come in and try and fill your stop gaps by looking in the market again.
Yeah, absolutely. What I was going to say as well is you mentioned injuries there to both Romero and Van der Ven, but I think what you've got to add into it, and I'm not having a go, but you do have to add in that Romero does like a suspension. He is prone to suspension, and let's be brutally honest. I don't know how you feel. I haven't spoken to you about the situation. I mean, realistically, he should be serving another suspension right now, shouldn't he, with the Newcastle tackle? So we do have to do something in that centre back position, don't we? Just lastly on the defence, it seems like we're almost okay at right back. Centre back, we know what we need. left back an issue for you? You know, you've got a doggy who, again, we're starting to see. Yes, he's young. He likes a suspension. He's got that rash gene in him as well.
I don't think that yellow card was a yellow card that he got against Forest.
No.
I think that was a joke. But generally speaking, I've been saying it. I do think he's got a bit of a recklessness. You know, he's been sent off once, and he's had, was it 6 yellow cards now? I think in total. But I think he's class. I think he's the best left back in the Prem this season, at least. I think he's got amazing ceiling, amazing potential. But you need someone behind him. And at the moment, when you look at the options we've got, you know, I don't think Ben Davies can really do that particular role. Ryan Sessegnon, like, no. Serge Reguilon's coming back in January. I don't know whether or not he'll want to stay. I don't necessarily want Reguilon taking up a foreign quota. So, yeah, look, I do think there's an argument that you go and get another left back, but someone that's fit for purpose. I'm okay with it being a youngster. I'm okay with it being a little bit more one for the future. But I want Ryan Sessegnon out the door, mate, to be honest. You know, I really do.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it, Ryan Sessegnon? I mean, that guy he misses a game due to, you know, just a niggle. He's got a niggle in his knee. 9 months later, where's Ryan Sessegnon?
Yeah. He's still playing for us.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, I'll tell you what, I mean, that guy, I'd love to know how much money he's earned as opposed to how many minutes of football he's played for Tottenham Hotspur. It must be,
he earns more than Messi on a per minute played basis. For sure.
Yeah, well, some people think he's as good as Messi, so you know how it is. Look, let's move into the midfield. I think we all kind of know, and Ange just said it himself. It's not like, you know, with some fan bases, we guess what we need. We all go, oh, we definitely need this, and the manager's got none of that thinking in his brain. He said we need a centre half. But look, we're moving into an area now in midfield where it's been quite disrupted in there. Bissouma with a sending off, Maddison with his bad injury, Skip and Højbjerg have been coming off the bench. Lo Celso's been a real bit part player. African Cup of Nations coming up, Bentancur coming back and then getting the old Matty Cash tackle. What do you make of our midfield, and what do you see for it moving into January? Because injuries and AFCON is changing that, right? It's going to change what we want.
But I don't want us to make a decision based on 3 games, you know, or 3 or 4 games for the AFCON. I don't want us to do that. What I do think is necessary is to consider and to have those conversations with the likes of Lo Celso and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, if they're happy, what they want to do, find out where their head's at. And if the answer is that they want to lead, then I think you obviously have to make moves. I also think that I don't think Ollie Skip has stepped up enough for me. I don't think he's I don't feel comfortable when he's on the pitch. I'm not taking anything against him. I think he played well against Forest in the second half. I don't think he ever lets himself down, but I just don't think he really does enough for me to see us going forward. And I don't know if he should want to play 6th or 7th fiddle, you know, in a midfield 3. I think he should have ambitions for his own career. He's young, but obviously he's a homegrown number, right? So unless you're going to go and bring someone in, and if you do remove Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, if you do sell him, then I think that those links to Calvin Phillips might make sense, because as long as he hasn't put on loads of weight and lost interest in the game, and there's rumours that he's put on a bit of weight, but I do think he could make sense as a level up on Højbjerg and Skip, but also he's a homegrown. So then it makes it easier to have conversations around what to do with the likes of Sessegnon or Ollie Skip as well. You're not then, you know, you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. But ultimately, I don't put all that stuff to one side. When you've got your first 11, when everyone's fully fit, and you've got the likes of Decky, Lo Celso, and Maddison as options in the 10, I think that's a lot of depth there, because I think Decky's brilliant in the 10. I think Maddison's obviously
much better in the 10, is it? We'll talk about Decky in a minute, but much better in the 10. Yeah.
And then I think as midfield options, I think Pape Sarr has just been an absolute breath of fresh air. I think he's the glue that keeps everyone kind of comfortable in around the pitch, because they know he's got daddy long legs, he can run and cover the ground. So people have a bit more kind of a risk-on approach. If they do make a mistake, there's not going to be a massive gap behind, because he can cover the angles. And I think you've got Bentancur and Bissouma. You know, I think that you've got a lot of talent in the midfield. I'm not looking at the midfield and think that we're weak. I don't think we're weak. I think that we've got a lot of utility, versatility, a lot of players. I'm not sure we know what Pape Sarr's best role is. I don't think we know what Højbjerg's best role. I don't think we know where Skip should play. I don't think we even know where Bentancur should play, really. I don't know. I'm still not convinced that Bissouma is the 6. I think Bissouma could have been a better 8 than a 6. I know everyone told me I was wrong in the summer when he played amazingly well in the first 6 games, but since Luton,
I agreed, Sean. I don't know if you remember the summer. I agreed with you. I think watching Bissouma now, when I see him sitting deep, and you remember Graham, who used to do the shows with me? I don't know if you remember. So I watch a lot of the games with Graham, and he always says to me that, like, he felt that in those first 5 or 6 games this season where Bissouma was excellent, right? Do you remember everyone was going, "Oh my God, this is the best midfielder in the world. He's the best player ever."
Yeah, I was completely in the mud, 100% in the mud by everybody.
But I don't feel like at those times that he was dropping as deep as he is now. I felt like he was recovering well, but I felt that he was very much a number 8. He was very much box to box, getting back and forward. It almost seems like, just since that kind of Luton game with the sending off, that he seems to be sitting deeper and less effective, because something's really happened to him. And a comment that I've just seen that I thought was quite interesting was Loves Music, and big up Loves Music, man. Much love for you. Has said, unpopular opinion, I consider selling Bissouma. Something doesn't feel right about him. For me, he is far too Instagram obsessed. I wish he was focused. I wish he was as focused as Sonny.
Do you know what I find? You know what I think is that I think that Maddison. I know it's crazy to think that the loss of the number 10 affects the number 6, but Maddison was coming deep in a lot of the games. He was dropping deep into the kind of the double pivot role when Udogie was kind of left out on the left-hand side for like game-specific instructions. Maddison would come deep and play in that sort of double pivot that would often be occupied, and now is more often occupied by either Udogie or Pedro Porro. Now, people think we play with a single pivot. We don't. Because of those inverted fullbacks, we often occupy as a double or even a treble pivot at times. Which reminds me, don't let me forget. I want to talk about Zubimendi, because people were saying we shouldn't sign him because he's a double pivot player, and I think we could sign him and should sign him. I think he's one of the world's best double pivot midfielders, and I think that in our system, even though it's a technical 6 in a single pivot, because if you have the inversion with Pedro Porro or with Udogie, I think you could easily, Zubimendi would suit that model absolutely fantastically. But sorry, back to the point. I think that Maddison's injury disjointed Bissouma a little bit, because in many games where Bissouma was struggling to kind of win that ball in that midfield battle, Maddison would come deep to help out, and then other players would move forward. And Maddison's injury, I think, has probably affected Bissouma more than I think most people realise.
Do you know what? It feels strange, doesn't it? Because that 3 that played, I mean, somebody will tell me I'm wrong. Maybe the first 7 or 8 games, I believe they played together. Could be wrong, could be 6 or 7, whatever it was. Sarr, Bissouma, Maddison. It just felt like it clicked. You had Maddison dropping deep. Maddison would go wide. I remember Sarr spent a lot of time out wide right, if you remember, covering over there. Bissouma would drop deep when he needed to, but would spend a lot of time running at defences as well. We've had to maneuver that a lot, and I just wonder, when they're all fit, touch wood, that happens soon, what the best 3 would be, Sean, because you've got Maddison, Bissouma, Sarr, Bentancur,
when they're all fit, I think it's Bentancur, Sarr, Maddison. But I think it depends on horses for courses who you're playing against. If you're playing against a team with a high line, then I think you could make the argument, as much as this will annoy people, I think you could make the argument that Decky should maybe be benched, and you're playing against a top 4 or 5 team, you bring him off the bench as an impact sub against tiring legs, because his engine just goes on and on. But you need someone with pace on the right, and Brennan Johnson, for me, is clearly better on the right than he is on the left. You need Sonny in the 9. Maybe try Decky on the left instead of
we'll come to the forwards in a minute. We will come to the forwards in a minute. No, because I just want to. I was tinkering with the idea. Do we talk about Decky as a midfielder? Is he going as a forward? But
he's versatile,
it's interesting,
mate. He can play everywhere, can't he? People have been asking me today, could he play as a 9? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think we'll ever see it, But anyway, stick to the midfield for now.
Yeah, absolutely. Big up. Whilst we're there, there's over 345 of you in here. Smash that like button, people. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Big love to Perchie, who's held the fort magnificently for me while I've been away, put in a lot of work. So thank you very much to him for that. Trevor Griggs said, Savva, there's always one. Let me quickly remind you.
1 second.
Yeah, go for it. Let me quickly remind you of things you were wrong. 1, Chelsea will bang. I mean, I don't use the word bang, but okay. 2, City is going to bounce back. I still believe they will. 3, Kulu is poor. I still think he's poor on the right wing. Son has lost his sharpness. Maddison isn't injury prone. Well, Maddison's had one injury, hasn't he? He's had one injury, but big up to you, Trevor. I mean, there's some words in there I don't use, but if that's what you want to go with that. Cash has said Bentancur is a better 6th than Bissouma. In my opinion, I feel like he's more level-headed. Yeah, going to be interesting to see when they're all fit what actually happens there. Arsenal de Groot has said Arsenal are after Zubimendi for the last 2 years. No chance he will go to Spurs. I love these sort of comments. Like any of us know what Zubimendi is actually thinking. I love this. Just before we move to the forwards, let's use this as a segue, Sean. Are you all right for time, by the way?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, sorry, I'm absolutely fine. Yeah. Sorry, Arsenal are after Zubimendi for the last 2 years. No chance to go to Spurs.
Okay. I wanted to use this as a segue into you said about Zubimendi. Top player. I've said for ages, I would take any of Real Sociedad's midfield 4. I think they're all really good footballers. Would you buy him? Would he come to Spurs?
I don't know if he'd come. I don't know. I've got no idea. I mean, maybe. What I would say, like I said, I think that people in the summer, people were saying, you don't need him. He's a double pivot midfielder, right? And I just think that, having seen Ange in Ange ball in all its glory, I think that we actually do play with a double pivot all the time. It just doesn't look like it on paper because you're playing with a back 4 and it's like a 4-3-3. But I think that there's always someone pivoting with Bissouma or with Bentancur or whoever it is. It's either going to be the 9 who's coming back in games when the tactic is for the fullbacks to stay a little bit more wide, like against Manchester City, the fullbacks were told to stay wide. And in the first half, we had I forget who it was who came back, but in the second half, Rashad, when Højbjerg came on, he came back in to support in the 6th role just to support Bissouma. So I think that Tottenham always do have someone coming back and supporting, and therefore this idea that Zubimendi wouldn't fit our system, I just think it's nonsense. I think he absolutely would fit our system, and he's such a talented player, mate, that I'd love to see him at Tottenham. Would he come? I don't know, but no idea.
Yeah, I think sometimes you look at footballers and I think we focus so much on, are they a 6? Are they an 8? Are they a double pivot? Some players are just good players, right? And you make it work. But look, Sean, let's move to an interesting area of our pitch, because it's been the area of the pitch for many years where we've not had problems. We've had Son, we've had Kane, and there was always one other that played with them. It was Kulu. Before that, it was the likes of Lucas Moura or Bergwijn or a Llorente or whatever it may be. Some people still not quite convinced that we've got enough goal power. Some people I've seen in shows lately saying that they don't feel that we've quite got the right front three, the right mixture. What do you make about the whole forward line? What is the best forward line? And I want you to end by leading into Kulu, because obviously he's played most of the season on the right, but for me looks so much better in the middle. So talk me through that.
The best forward line for Tottenham. Look, I mean, at the moment, I think it depends on who you're playing against. I think Tottenham have got the best return out against the traditional top 6 than we've ever had, I think, in a first half of a season. I don't remember any time we've ever gone undefeated. If we're including Chelsea in the top 6, I don't think we should anymore. I think that they're dead food a little bit. But the other guys, I think, we've beaten Newcastle. We've beaten Man United, Liverpool. We drew with Arsenal, drew with City. Only Chelsea have taken points from us from that kind of top 6. And I think that that's in no small part because the way we play against our system against theirs, when they want to come and play against us, that suits. And in that environment, if you're playing against them, I think that you do have to play Sonny in the 9. You have to have Sonny on the shoulder. You can't play Richarlison in that role. And in that world, you then have in a fully fit kind of everyone's back. You still want to have Maddison in the 10. So then you have to shoehorn Decky either to the right or to the left. But I actually think that Brennan Johnson is far better on the right than he is on the left-hand side. And I think he's learning how to drive and run at players, and his pace is necessary against those teams that will play a high line and against us. Again, in a team where you've got the low block, I think it's easier. I think the low block teams, I think you put Decky on the right. I think you put Richarlison up the top, and I think you put Sonny on the left-hand side. I think that's far easier to decide the front three, and then Maddison in the 10 against the low block team, because you can get creativity, and you need someone who like Richarlison who can get on the end in the air. But for the high line teams you're playing against, I think it's a bit more complicated. And as I was saying, I think you could make the argument. I think you could. Won't be a popular one here, but I think you could make the argument to leave Decky on the bench and play Brennan Johnson on the right, or play Decky if he's not on the bench, then play him on the left-hand side. But I think you need to have that pace in Brennan Johnson on the right-hand side and Sonny in the 9.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? This look, obviously there was a lot of talk when Brennan Johnson was signed. I believe the quote at the time, I can't remember who said it. I don't know whether it was maybe an Alistair Gold or maybe it was an Ornstein, but somebody came out with a quote that this was Ange's number one target in Brennan Johnson. And then for the first 5, 6, 7 games we saw him play, Sean, he was put down on that left. And I just didn't think he was effective there at all. On the right, he looks better. But for me, I don't know, you might tell me I'm wrong here. For me, I think Brennan Johnson is one of those players who I think technically he's lacking. But with his pace, I think he's one of those that every 3 or 4 games, you're going to get one brilliant moment. Do I think he's good enough for that next level if you want to compete with the Arsenals, the Liverpools, the Cities? Jury's out for me. But what do you make of him specifically as a player?
I think he's improving. I think he's definitely improving. The last 2 games, I think he's clearly been told by Postecoglou to get the ball and drive at players. And I think he's done it 2 or 3 times in the last 2 games. And he's had success. I agree. I don't think he's good on the left. I don't think he suits the left-hand side at all. I think our left-hand side is a massive problem. I'd still make the argument that Perisic is our best left-sided winger, even though I think he's probably played his last game for us. I don't think Manor Solomon fits the bill. I think Tottenham need to go and get someone who can play on the left-hand side in January if the opportunity arrives. But for me, Brennan Johnson should be on the right. But like I say, against teams where you have you're playing against the top 4, or teams that have a higher line, and don't care so much, then you can use his pace as an advantage. But against the low block teams where you might be forced to whip balls in, then I think that it's much simpler. You put Decky out there, and then you put Richarlison in the 9 and Sonny on the left, and that's just easy peasy. But I think Brennan Johnson's getting better, Sab. I don't think he's anywhere near the finished article, but I think he's very, very much a rough diamond.
He's raw, isn't he?
He's raw, so raw. But he has lots. He comes across a bit of a wimp, though. Like I don't know. He went off injured. I was at the game, so I didn't see how severe it was. But I heard that he went off with just like a little graze to his head. Did you see that game? Against Nottingham Forest? Did you see how deep the gash was? Was it a big gash that he had to get taken off for?
Yeah, I didn't see too much of it, but apparently Ange said he's back for Everton, right? So, but you're right. A few people I've spoken to have said that they've always felt he's a bit lightweight, and sometimes I don't really know what that means, but he has. I don't know. For me, I don't think he's looked. I don't think I've seen a game for him play. Sorry, that was terrible grammar. I don't think I've seen a game that he's played for Spurs so far where I felt, yeah, you look 100% fit. I mean, I think he seems like he runs out of energy quite easily. Now, I don't know if that's because he had the injury and he's not being fully fit. I don't know if it's getting used to Ange's style of play, but it's definitely an interesting conundrum because the Decky conundrum creates the Decky, Richarlison, Son, Kulu.
Yeah, but if you've got Decky or Maddison, and I was having this conversation earlier, I don't know if Maddison could actually, because he can float, right? He can float out to the left, he can float out to the right. Like I said, in the earlier part of the season, he was floating back at times to get the ball and create from deep. So I think he can float anywhere. I think that Decky's best position for me is in the 10. I think he's got so much more freedom and he's so strong and he can hold the ball up and do so many wonderful things that playing him on the right and asking him to sit on the touchline and wait for the ball like you do with Brennan Johnson or like a Brian Hill or whatever, if it was on the other side. I just feel like you're wasting Decky a little bit. And I think that also inherently allows him to just do what he does predictably, which is cut in on the left-hand side with his left foot and and too many moves kind of have fallen apart. I think Decky's better in the 10, but then how do you shoehorn him and Maddison into the same team?
Well, this is what we're about to talk about. Just quickly, guys and girls, look, this is a nice chilled stream. Please, mods, don't suspend people unless they're racism, homophobic. Otherwise, please don't just be timing people out. I'm seeing some really loyal followers of this channel being timed out for no reason. So please, can we just keep it nice? Listen, it's just football. It's just football. If life has taught me anything lately, it is just football. Let's talk about it, Sean. And by the way, keep smashing the like button and please do subscribe. Come on, people. Let's get 4 or 5 more subscribers for the end of the show.
Jacob saying he was dripping with blood. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't see that from the stand. I just thought, has he got a little nick to his head? Get up, come on.
So was Terry Butcher, and I don't remember him going off. Paul Ince. Look, it's interesting, isn't it? I'm going to throw a scenario at you, right? James Maddison's fit. Now, Kulu's fit. Maddison's fit. Brennan Johnson's fit. Sonny's fit. Richarlison's fit.
Everyone's fit.
3 don't go into 5, right? Yeah. 5 doesn't go into 3. Of course, 3 goes into 5. 5 doesn't go into 3.
Yeah.
What should he do? What would you do? Because for me, I think Kulu, I've really enjoyed him lately in the middle. I've enjoyed watching him there. You know me, I don't enjoy watching him on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
But I also don't think that he's anywhere near the level of footballer James Maddison is in that position. So what happens when all of that comes to fruition?
Well, let me ask you first, right? Can James Maddison play on the left?
I think he could. I think you're taking away your best playmaker by a mile, aren't you?
Do you reckon Decky can play on the left?
I'd prefer that way round.
Can Decky play in the 8?
Interesting. Why not? Why not?
I don't know. But this is playing the 9. I think Decky can play bloody anywhere, mate. I think he's got enough of skill set. I think he's technically good enough. I think he doesn't rely on his pace. He hasn't got that much pace. He's strong. He's got a good vision. He's very left foot dominant most of the time, even though I make this point again and again and again. Every single time I've ever seen him use his right foot, he's always done well. Case in point, Nottingham Forest, second goal, miss hit from the keeper. He picks the ball up, drives with his right foot, takes one absolute thunderbolt of a right foot into the top bins. Why he doesn't use his right foot more often is beyond me, because whenever he does, he invariably has more space because most defenders set up to expect him to cut inside. And he's brilliant. But if he wants to use his left foot and all the team is back and Tottenham still have a massive problem with our left winger, then I think if Brennan Johnson's better on the right and Sonny's better in the 9 and Decky's better and we need to put Decky and Maddison in, then I think maybe you put Decky on the left. Or if Richarlison's going to keep his form up, Sav, then I can't believe I'm saying this, but you can't drop an informed striker who's scoring goals. So do you keep Richarlison, Maddison, Sonny on the left, and then Brennan Johnson on the right, and Decky goes back to the bench and comes off as an impact sub, which would be criminal.
It's interesting because this next season, when we're in Europe, touch wood, when we're in Europe, these things aren't an issue for me because that's what you do. That's what teams in Europe have to be able to do. When you've only got 1 game a week, it's a big one, right? Because let's be brutally honest about this. I mean, I don't know. I'll ask you again. I'll ask everyone in the chat. It's not my opinion. James Maddison has to play for me. Everyone, when he's fit, does James Maddison have to play for you guys in the number 10? For me, I think he was one of the best players in the league before his injury. So I just can't see any way, shape or form that he doesn't play. But at the same time, if Decky's playing well, Richarlison, if he keeps scoring goals, obviously, you know me, I'm not going to get knee-jerk over 2 games, but if he keeps scoring goals, and Sonny's the captain who's going to play. So Sonny's kind of got his place cemented. I don't know.
But was Sonny against Newcastle so impressive on the left? You know, he tore Kieran Trippier to pieces. And Trippier is one of the best right backs, you know, in the league, right? So I don't know. I think that listen, I think our biggest headache. I'm happy having selection headaches. I'm very happy because it means everyone.
Sure.
And also on the right hand side, Brennan Johnson and Decky are such different types of players that if both of them are sort of legitimately vying for each other's spots, then it's very difficult for opposition to plan and know and feel confident of what they're going to be playing against. If you don't know whether you're playing against Decky on the right or Brennan Johnson, those players are so entirely different.
Yeah, correct.
That's a wonderful, wonderful option to have. But yeah, on the left, I still think that Tottenham, even though we've got all these options in a fully fit squad, I still think that Tottenham need a left winger.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the left wing situation is so many people have played out there. This season alone, you've had Brennan Johnson who's played out there. Perisic has played out there. Richarlison, Son, Johnson, Solomon. So it's a lot of different players that have played out there. So let me move that on nicely then. In terms of, look, we're coming to the January transfer window. Postecoglou's come out and said, not just that we need players. He's not been coy about it. He's actually said that we need players, but that we need them in early so that they can integrate and so that they can give us as much support. I can't remember the phrase he used, but it was so that we can maximize, getting the best out of them for the month or whatever it was. Where's he going to buy? Because according to a lot of our fans, we need a left back, we need centre backs, we need midfielders to cover, we need a left winger, we need a forward. Well, what do you think he gets in?
I think he gets a centre back, and I think he gets a striker.
You think he goes for a striker?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I personally think that we need a forward, a winger, a left winger, a brilliant left winger who can drive at players. I think I'd tolerate Sonny and Richarlison as the striker options if we had a left winger that could terrify defenses, but we don't really have that unless you put Sonny out there. And if you put Sonny out there, then he's not in the 9. And against some teams, you need him in the 9. And Richarlison's not going to work against teams that don't sit low block. So, that's at least half the games, when you're playing away from home against mid-table teams, they don't want to do low block all the time. So I think Richarlison's a good horse for a certain course. Sonny's the best 9 and the best left winger we have in the squad. I don't know when Solomon or Perisic, if they're ever going to be playing for us, but so I think that you could make the argument that you need either a striker or a winger. I don't think we need a left back right now. I think that's something you worry about in the summer. I think a goalkeeper is something you worry about in the summer. I think a midfielder, unless there's movement on Højbjerg or Lo Celso, I think you worry about that in the summer. I think we should be okay there. So really, for me, it's forwards and a centre back. And you? What do you think?
Do you know what? I'm not sure. I get the feeling that, only in my opinion, from watching Valise, I feel like he's miles off it. I'm not knocking him. He's only come on for a few minutes, but just seeing, sometimes you look at a player straight away and go, well, you're not ready. I think if I was Spurs, I would have Valise out on loan in the Championship. If I'm brutally honest, I would see if we get a nice.
All about him. He's not ready.
And he's not ready. But I would get him to a Championship club. I would go down and find a Championship club that needs a centre forward that wants to hold up play, good in the air, and I would get him some minutes. I would get him some physical minutes because I don't think he's ready. And I think you're right. I think if that is the case, then I think you do need it's got to be either a left winger or a striker. But I think that he might feel he's okay with the options, with Solomon coming back. Now Richarlison's managed to score a couple. We'll talk about him in a minute. Now Richarlison scored a couple with Sonny, with Decky, with Maddison, with Johnson. I think he might feel he's all right there. And I think what's going to happen is I think you might see one centre mid come in and one centre back. That's what I think he's going to do.
For who? Who's a centre mid? And we're going to sell someone to make room for them?
Well, listen, I'm going to completely contradict myself here. I love doing it. I get the feeling if Bentancur wasn't still injured, I think if Bentancur had come back and picked up another injury, and if Maddison hadn't had his injury, I think you might have seen Skippy and or Højbjerg both going out the door.
Yeah.
With one coming in the other way. I've got a feeling because of the AFCON, because of the injury to Bentancur, because none of us know what's happening with Maddison. Let's be fair, he could come back and we don't know how long that's going to last.
He's not far away though, is he, apparently?
No, apparently not. But I mean, we've already seen, right, that, you know, once you get an injury like that, how long does it take to come back and all that kind of stuff. So I truly believe that they probably would have let Højbjerg go. Now I don't think they will. I don't think they will, unless there's a like-for-like replacement or a replacement more in the mold he likes. But what do you make of that situation with Højbjerg and Skip? Because for me, neither are good enough. I think they are last 20 minutes, see a game out players.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't know if now's the right time to get rid of them. What do you make of it?
I basically agree with you, mate. No, I'm not a massive fan of Ollie Skip. I don't think he's. I know he's been unfortunate with injuries, and I know hasn't had that many minutes, but I just don't really see him at that level that we're trying to get to. Højbjerg, again, I think he's brilliant as a squad player. I think if you can have a Højbjerg as a squad player, I think it's perfect. The problem is that this season, Tottenham have had to dip into their squad depth so frequently because of injuries and suspensions and the like that, you know, we're seeing a few too many minutes out of them than otherwise desirable. But I don't know who you get in. I don't know if anyone's going to pay 30 million quid for Højbjerg. You know, I don't know if that's
Would you?
No, I don't. No, I probably. Well, it depends on who you are and what you need, right? Like, I think he'd be a great player for. If he went back to Germany, I think he'd be a great player. I think in Italian football, I think the pace would suit him. You know, I think in Atletico Madrid I think he would do really well there. I think a Juve it would suit. You know, but I just don't know if any of those clubs have got money to pay, and I don't want to give more loans out. I hate this loan. Like, at some point you've got to try and get some money for your assets if you want to go and then reinvest it elsewhere. But again, trying to find a like-for-like replace, trying to find someone that's better. Like, for me, I would not, even if Calvin Phillips was available, even if Pep Guardiola wanted to come to Tottenham, wanted to deal with Tottenham, I wouldn't want to commit to 4 years of Calvin Phillips until I've at least seen him play, you know, 6 months for us to see what level he's at. Because I think he's been a little bit too far out off, you know, too long gone from first team football. So at best, I would do a loan with an obligation or a loan with an option. That's it. I wouldn't do anything more than that.
I'll tell you what, when you mentioned him earlier, Calvin Phillips, that's the first thing that went through my mind was, I think Pep would be happy for him to come on loan. But here's my question to you, John. If you're Calvin Phillips, who's been sitting on a bench for nearly 2 years now at Man City, are you going to jump ship to Tottenham for 6 months, knowing that, let's be brutally honest, when all fit, does he make the team? When all of them are fit, does he get in above Sarr? Does he get in above Bissouma? I don't know. So
no, but I think he definitely gets in. At least he'll get the chance to prove himself. If he was to cut, he'll get the chance to prove himself in January and February, right? And then you don't know what with Bentancur. Like, you know, Bentancur, you hope that the injuries are two separate things, but you hope that he's going to be back, you know, in March, and that'll be the end of it. It was bad luck, but you just don't know whether or not this guy is just, you know, a glutton for injury punishment. Bissouma, again, people were making the comments earlier about, you know, we're not sure about Bissouma. I'm not sure about Bissouma. Like, I think he's on his day, he's brilliant when he wants to be, but sometimes he just he falls asleep, or he's not paying attention, or he's just off the ball. Like, if you're going to have a six who wants to control things and be such an impactful player, then you need that guy to be switched on from minute 1 to minute 100 or 98, whatever it is. And in Bissouma, you have a guy who can be excellent, but can also be a little bit sloppy.
I mean, dare I say it, at the beginning of the season, lots of the comparisons were about Declan Rice versus Bissouma, and oh my God, this guy was 100 million, this guy was 25 million. But I mean, I know which one I'd rather have in my team. I don't want to be mean to Bissouma, but Rice is, like you just said there, he's on it every game.
Yeah.
Declan Rice is 100% committed every game. There's no falling asleep at the wheel. You know what you're going to get. Bissouma on his day is phenomenal. But how many players can you have that are like that? Do you know what I mean? And he definitely seems to be one of them from what we've seen of him in a Spurs shirt. Can
I ask you a question? I had this debate with William Cahill on the Irish Hotspur last week, and I've been thinking about it a lot since. So we were talking about, like, are you going to get someone to pay 30 million quid for Højbjerg? Right? Maybe not, 25 million, whatever. Pape Matar, what's he worth?
Did everyone give answers?
Yeah. Well, Adam William Cahill put the idea out. He goes, I wouldn't sell him for £70 million. And I went,
all day long, I'd sell him for £70 million. Look,
yeah.
I think this is what
this player's got such a massive ceiling. We haven't got a clue what sort of player we have. I was like, exactly. That's why you take £70 million. Because you do know what you're getting with £70 million. And it's £70 million.
It's difficult because when questions like this come up, what will happen is the next thing I know will be, oh my God, Savva wants to sell Sarr. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, look, yeah. Pape Sarr's a really interesting footballer for me. I don't still quite know his best position, but I know that he's very useful. Like, he's got a great engine on him. There's talent there. I don't think he's the best on the ball. But I also acknowledge that he is only, 21 max, I think, years of age.
I think he's 20. I think next year 20. He becomes a homegrown player as well for us.
Right. I mean, what is he worth? I mean, mate, look, the market's mental. So God knows. If you said to me, let's pick a team. Juventus, I don't know why. Juventus have come in, probably the worst example of who we should be trading with right now. Juventus have come in and said there's £70 million for Pape Sarr. I'd like to think that with all of the scouts that we've got, you could go out and get something. Yeah, you could do something with that. But again, with young players, it's always the debate will always be,
played 16, 17 games for us. Like, right. And we paid 10 million quid for him. I know we've got an absolute gem, and Adam's right. Like, we don't know how he could be the next Yaya Toure. He could be the next Vieira. He could be one of these absolute world-class players, or he could fizzle out. And I think £70 million, you can do a lot. You can do a lot with £70 million. I think no one's bidding £70 million.
Of course it is. I think the interesting thing about any conversation, forget whether it's a Tottenham player who's 20 years of age. The interesting thing with most 20-year-olds, unless you're talking about the Jude Bellinghams, right? Unless we're talking about the Pedris and the Gavis, unless we're talking about Musiala, right? Unless we're talking about those guys, any young player. We do this a lot as football fans. We go, oh my God, the ceiling, this ceiling that people have invented in the last 5 years. None of us know a player's ceiling. Let's be brutally honest, right? Listen, Sean Wright-Phillips was going to be the best winger in the world, right? You look at Stuart Downing was going to be the best winger in the world. Steve Sidwell, moved around, was going to be this great player. John Bostock was going to be this great player. I mean, I could go through how many. I mean, who was the bloke at Man United? Ravel Morrison was. Oh my God, this boy's amazing. You don't know. All you can do is hope that they're nurtured. They're given the best possible chance to fulfill their potential. But we can't sit here and go, this guy's ceiling is here. We don't really know that, do we? Let's be brutally honest. So look, I like Pape Sarr. I think he's a good player. I'll be honest, I think that when everyone's fit, he would be the one for me that I'd be thinking about not playing. I don't know. Like when Bentancur, Bissouma and Maddison and him are all fit. I just don't I don't know. I need to see more of him. Like you said there, Sean, it is like a 17-game sample size.
Yeah, not a lot.
And we've seen players before that are brilliant for 17 games and then don't do anything for the rest of their career. We've seen players that are crap for 17 games and then suddenly turn into world beaters. So I always keep my feet on the ground with players, especially at that age. But I'll ask the chat.
If you were going with Bentancur, Bissouma, and Maddison, who plays in the six in that?
I would play Bentancur in it in the kind of Rodri type role. I think when you look at players like Rodri, for me, Rodri's the best player in the Premier League. I don't think I've made any bones about that for years. I think he's the best player in the league by a mile. I think he makes the best team in the world tick. When you look at him, when you look at Sergio Busquets before him, I think they kind of redefined the DM position. Like that you didn't have to be this nasty tackling ball winner, but you could be a clever ball winner that is actually more of a quarterback. And I think that Bentancur, I don't know, I could be completely wrong here. I just think that position for me, with Bentancur's ability on the ball, his speed of thought.
Bentancur in that first half against Aston Villa, it was like, what injury? What are you talking about? I ain't been injured.
Yeah, he looked class, yeah.
He looked absolutely sensational. Playing in the 6, right? So it's a great selection headache to have for Ange. When everyone's fit, it'd be wonderful to get them all back at some point this season. It'll be awesome because as the season progresses, the last 4 or 5 games for Tottenham are brutal, aren't they? I think we played like 4 of the top 6, most of them away from home in the last 4 or 5 games. So if you were to have them all back, if you were to have Maddison, Bentancur, Decky, Richarlison, Sonny, even Perisic, if you were to have something close to a full strength squad for those last 4 games, I'd rate our chances to pick up wins, or at least not lose in all of those games. I think our first 11 and even the bench, when you have a fully fit squad, is up there.
Yeah. Listen. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. Just before we go, for the last 5 minutes, I just want to talk to you about Everton. They've done really well. We'll come to us versus them the other day, but it's almost as though that 10-point deduction has kind of really galvanized them. And they've won. Mate, they've been. I mean, if we look at the league table now, right? I say, let me bring the league table up, right? What they've done is nothing short of miraculous with the squad that they've got. Like when we talk about Unai Emery's been manager of the year or Postecoglou's been manager of the year, let's be brutally honest. Everton right now, so they're sitting down in 16th on 16 points. So they'd be on 26 points. They'd be where Brighton are.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if someone was to say to you, Everton, with the squad they've got, are going to be 1 point behind West Ham, 2 behind Man United, and 3 behind Newcastle, even if you're 7 behind Spurs, they would have been your hand off.
As much as I admire Sean Dyche, I don't think that would have happened had it not been for the deduction. I think the deduction was a catalyst. I think it was like, all right, it's us against the world. Let's figure it out as a team. This is going to unite us, all that kind of thing, you know. What would be really interesting though is if they do carry on their run and they get to like 61 points or 59 points. Imagine if their appeal then gets accepted and they get that 10 points back and it puts them into a
I think it will bottom out about 4 or 5 points, the deduction in the end. But I mean, listen, they've done a wonderful job, and 4 clean sheets in a row as well. Not to be sniffed at, and that was even with a number of injuries in their defence at the weekend. They still kept a clean sheet. What do you make of them versus us? Have we got too much for them?
Yeah, at home we do. Yeah, we always beat them at home. Touch wood. I'm not. You know what? I've learned recently. Stop saying those sorts of things like football gods, all that sort of thing. You know, stop saying it. If I could take back the last 10 seconds, I would. I just think that. I think generally, it will be a good game. I think Everton will come in and do the low block and try and do like an Unai Emery kind of master, like a Sean Dyche masterclass where they'll break on us and things. But I think they'll be very dangerous in the air. I think set pieces they'll be a threat because they've got some really big, tall guys. So I think that they'll score against us. But I just think that if we come at them and run at them like we did against Newcastle, I think we'll just have too much pace, too much trickery, too much power. And too much sort of momentum behind us, and I hope that the fans are going to be right up for it. You know, I can't wait because we need the 3 points. You know, if we're going to keep up, we're going 360 here. But if you said at the start, it's all about trying to just keep up with Man City, keep up with Villa, keep up with Arsenal and Liverpool. Right now, we need these 3 points. If we drop these 3 points, everything kind of falls apart again. But yeah, I do think that whilst Everton have done very well, mate, and Sean Dyche should be absolutely applauded. I think Tottenham at home against Everton usually is a good fixture for us. So,
yeah. I mean, I'll tell you. Just to give them their credit and somewhere where I believe they could hurt us. I don't think they're going to win. I think we should have far too much for them. They are a big physical team, and at set pieces, I've watched them their last few games. They look very, very dangerous. They've got some big old brutes in that team. The likes of Brathwaite, Keane. Connor Cody. They got some big lads in there, and they utilise it well. What you would expect from a Sean Dyche setup, right?
Yeah.
So, going to be good. If you were going to give me a score, what would you give me?
3-1 Tottenham.
3-1 Tottenham. Yeah, I think we're going. Yeah, I think we're going to score 3. I think 3-1, 3-0, 3-1. I think we'll have too much for them. Then again, I did say this about West Ham, so I'm always a little bit cautiously optimistic. But listen. These are the games where if we want to make Champions League football next year, you've got to be beating Everton at home, right? That's the be all and end all with this game, surely.
100%, mate. Yeah, I'm not taking anything for granted, and I hope that Ange doesn't allow the players to think, good result, 2 good results on the bounce. You got to keep this momentum going. The good teams, the teams that you want to take the prizes, they find a way to utilize momentum, not to kind of to sort of double down on it rather than like suddenly rest on their laurels. And I hope that Ange has got that message loud and clear into the players. And I expect us to do okay. But yeah, tough game, 3-1. Tottenham, I think we'll stay 5th, won't we? Who have Man City got?
Let's have a look. Who have Man City got? Should we have a look? So Man City, Man City don't play for a while, do they? Because of
that's right. We can go 4th then, yeah.
Yeah,
and Liverpool and Arsenal are playing each other, so we can if they draw 0-0 or 1-1, then we can close 2 points on them.
Yeah, because there was something going around the other day that said, I believe this was before the Liverpool Man United draw. It said that if Liverpool won all their games, by the time Man City next play a Premier League game, they're going to be 12 points behind. Now that can't happen, but by the power of maths, that leads me to believe that if Liverpool still win their games, they could be 10 points clear of City by the time City next play a league game. So it's going to be an interesting run-in. It really, really is. But you're right. I think for me, if we want Champions League, I don't really think there can be any excuses. I'm not going to hear about injuries and players out. Everton have as well. Got to win this game. But Sean, listen, thank you so much for being part of tonight. Really appreciate that.
No problem, mate. Enjoyed it. Always enjoy it.
Really do. Good man. Listen, thank you very much to everyone in the chat. We've had over 300 for most of the show. All I would kindly ask is if you could please smash that subscribe button before you leave. That would be much appreciated as we try and work our way back up to the 12K. That would be amazing. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. I'm going to bring back my 10 a.m. morning shows where I speak to you guys, the chat. I answer your questions. We have a general chat. We'll get back to that, back to the old days, back to having some fun. So join me tomorrow at 10 a.m. Sean, what you got coming up? When can people watch you?
I'll just put some videos out tomorrow. Dog walk, whatever's in the news. Wednesday, I've got I do a thing called the Devil's Advocate. It's usually on a Tuesday, but it's getting pushed forward to Wednesday this week, where Dave and myself and Johnny H. We just basically argue for an hour, or deliberately take the other side of arguments to see where the kind of truth lands. It's quite a cool show. That usually happens around Wednesday lunchtime. And then game day stuff coming up. I'll be at the game on Saturday, so looking forward to that. But yeah, Spurs Talk Shows where you can find me, guys. Like I said earlier, even if you have subscribed, can you at some point just double check you still are, because YouTube keeps unsubscribing people. But Savva, great to have you back, mate. And appreciate you having me on.
No, I appreciate it. Just the last thing before we go. It's just interesting. You said Liverpool and Arsenal are playing each other this weekend, right? And Sheffield United are the visitors to Villa Park.
Yeah.
So I think you'd have to be a crazy person to bet against Aston Villa winning that home game. So Aston Villa could go into Christmas top of the table.
Unbelievable.
Wow. No wonder Henry loves Unai Emery, eh?
Yeah.
But listen, thanks everyone. We'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Much love. Take care. Smash the like button. Smash the subscribe. And we will see you later. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.